You are live.
Thank you. We'll begin the Planning Committee meeting of Akron City Council. I'd like to entertain a motion that we accept the minutes of the previously held meeting.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second out there?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Guys have it. Very good. We have two items that are up for a public hearing today. The procedures for that will be that we will receive testimony from our planning department, actually a report from our planning department in terms of the form of a recommendation in reference to the conditional use requests. After that, we'll open up the public hearing and ask for those that wish to speak. Well, actually, we'll swear in those that wish to speak. Then we'll open up the public hearing for those that wish to speak in favor, those against, or may have questions, comments from the public. We'll then close the public hearing, and then the committee will ask questions and or council after that procedure. We will then repeat that this evening. The only significant differences between this afternoon and this evening is that the committee will make a recommendation in terms of either in favor, against, or to table the item, take time on the proposed conditional use requests. So those are the procedures that we'll be following today. And with that, we'll go ahead and move right in. And the first item that is up for public hearing today is ordinance authorizing conditional use to establish a type A children home at type A child care home at 2415 Nicholas Avenue. Mr. Antonucci.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Sean Shropshire was requesting permission to establish a child daycare home, a type A, at this location. The proposed daycare, also known as SWS Child Care LLC, would occupy 2 bedrooms and television room of the 1-story, 1,290 square foot ranch dwelling. The facility would provide services and activities for up to 12 children at a time from 2 to 11 years of age. And the daycare would be operated daily from 6 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. There will be no overnight stays. Petitioner plans on hiring up to 3 additional employees if approved. The property contains a rear yard outdoor play area, and the backyard is enclosed with fencing. Petitioner has stated that she currently operates a type B for 6 or less kids at this location, and the daycare is in full compliance with the state of Ohio. The proposed use should not be intrusive to the neighborhood because the property is near a dead-end street. The outdoor play area is fenced, and the majority of the activities are conducted indoors. Due to the flexible and varied scheduling needs of the children, the proposed daycare business should not significantly raise the level of activity on the property, nor have a detrimental effect on nearby homes. This property is well maintained, and providing quality daycare services is beneficial to the entire city. And as such, the planning staff supports the request. Thank you.
Thank you for that report, Mr. Antonucci. We'll now ask our representative from our law department to swear in. Is there a representative? Oh, yes, there you are, Rebecca. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on this particular item, reference the 2414 Nicholas Avenue? I know no one signed up, but if someone is here, raise your hand, please, and notify us. If there's someone here, reference this particular item. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone in favor? Anyone wishing to speak against? Anyone against? Okay, very good. We'll close the public hearing portion, and we'll now open it up to any committee members that may have questions or comments in reference to the 2414 Nicholas Avenue. Is there anyone here having any questions or comments at this moment? Any count? Oh, yes, Ms. Samples? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought your hand was. Thank you. Any council members have any questions or comments? Anyone with questions or comments reference to 2414? Mr. McKittrick, I see your hands up.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Hopefully I won't freeze up again here. I had to come back into the meeting.
I think you did freeze up just. Mr. McKittrick? I think you froze up there.
Yes.
Okay. Perhaps what we'll do is we'll take temporary time on this.
Just now.
Okay, Mr. McKittrick, sorry, you did kind of freeze up there for a second. Can you start from the beginning, please?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm having some issues here with my Wi-Fi or not, but I spoke with 5 of the different residents over there, 4 of which actually properties butt up to this particular business. One had no idea at all that there was even a child daycare there because it's so quiet. I did speak with 2 residents, or 1 of 2, that were objecting to it. And after speaking with that resident, he really didn't see a problem with it. He's on the adjacent street. He doesn't even butt up to it. And the other day I spoke with the operator of the business, and she invited me in and showed me the establishment. It's very well taken care of, very clean, and they take good care of their property. I am in support of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McKittrick, for that, for your comments. Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments from anyone on council? Anyone? Okay, not seeing anyone. So therefore, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda. The next public hearing, which is ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct an oversized garage at 49 Jewett Street. And with that, we'll now welcome a report from Mr. Antonucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Alan Hill is seeking approval to construct an accessory structure in the rear yard of his residence. The proposed structure measures 38 feet in width, 28 feet in length, and 27 feet in height. The proposed 2-story structure would be situated at the rear of the lot. The building would be clad in vinyl siding to match the dwelling. The 10-12 pitch roof would be asphalt shingled and would feature 2 large shed dormers on the front and side, and a single dormer on the rear. The front would feature a wide overhead door for the storage of 2 vehicles. On the south half, a smaller set of doors on the north half to allow for the storage of lawn and household tools and equipment storage. The second floor would provide 905 square feet of additional living space for the owner, and would include a half bathroom. Access to the garage would be through a shared driveway between the petitioner's residence and a neighboring property to the north at 55 Jewett Street. This dense neighborhood on the periphery of SUMA Akron City Hospital is characterized by modest homes on typically small and narrow lots. The housing stock in this area can present challenges to homeowners and home buyers who often desire more spacious lots and dwellings or additional space. The petitioner purchased his residence from the owner of the adjacent properties on both sides, and he has since made substantial improvements to the property. In October 2020, he purchased a small rear lot from the city of Akron. The petitioner has stated that the structure would only be used for the personal storage of vehicles and equipment and to provide additional living space for his family. The planning staff recognizes the investment the petitioner has made in improving and stabilizing this neighborhood. The proposed accessory structure is an attractive, creative solution to provide personal storage as well as additional living space, and will add value to the property and the neighborhood without having negative effects on surrounding properties. Office of Integrated Development and Planning Commission recommend approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you for your report, Mr. Antonucci. With that, I do know that there is someone who signed in and who wishes to testify before the committee. I believe it's the petitioner. So, Mr. Hill, if you could please, our representative from our law department will swear you in before we open the public hearing.
Okay, if you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth? If so, please answer, I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Very good. We'll now open up the public hearing and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak before the committee. If you could please provide for us your name and address, and we'll welcome your comments.
Yeah, my name is Alan Hill, and my address is 49 Jewett Street, Akron, Ohio. Thank you. I just wanted to just share a couple thoughts. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share today. I've been interested in building a garage for a few years now, just living in in some of the urban Akron areas, my property is very small, and there's actually very little parking opportunities. And so, but being able to build this garage would provide my wife and I covered parking for our vehicles. And also, I just want to invest and create a space that like my kids want to hang out in. And our house is very small. Our living room, dining room is kind of a shared open space with, an unfinished basement. Not a lot of place for them to expand and as they grow up. And so the upstairs of the garage is really an additional space for them to kind of move, whether it's hanging out space or toys and things like that as they grow up. So really looking to stay and live in Akron. I've worked closely with my neighbor who's involved with the well CDC in the area, and I love what's happening in the neighborhood and really trying to invest to make it better. And this is just one thing that feels like something that would help cement our stay in the neighborhood, and hoping to be able to get permission to build here and not have to move somewhere to get additional space for a garage and storage of lawn equipment, things like that. So thank you for the chance to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Hill, for your testimony. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in favor? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak against? Anyone wishing to speak against? Very good. Very good. We'll close the public hearing, and now we'll open it up to questions or comments from committee members. Okay, very good. I do see that Representative Connor has her hand up.
I do. I just want to agree with Mr. Antonucci and Mr. Hill. This is a wonderful piece of new development for the Middlebury area that's making great strides in transforming that neighborhood. Fully support it.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Sharon Connor, for your testimony. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in favor or against? I'm sorry. Any council members have any questions or comments? Questions or comments? Very good. Mr. Hill, you're okay with the 5 conditions? You're aware that there's 5 conditions, I believe, in reference to this ordinance, and you're okay with those? Or 4 conditions, I apologize.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, I reviewed those when the initial notice went out. I'm okay with those.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Questions or comments? Very good. We'll invite you back this evening, Mr. Hill, in which we will basically repeat the whole procedure over again. The only major difference is that the committee will make a recommendation, and we will then go forward from there. So thank you very much, and appreciated you being here this afternoon with the committee. Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll now move on to the balance of the agenda. Item number 3 is authorizing the mayor to negotiate, execute, and deliver a cooperative agreement related to the redevelopment of the property located at 47 North Main Street. This is, we had a pretty good discussion a couple weeks ago in reference to this particular item. I believe everyone received this grant agreement and cooperative agreement. Was there any questions or comments from anyone here on council in reference to this particular item? Assume everyone had a chance to digest this. And with that, recognizing, okay, Malik, I see your hands up.
Thank you very much. I know we had a lively discussion about the project a couple of weeks ago, and certainly recognize the importance of the project. I just wanted to confirm from my own understanding, in the previous proposal that had come up regarding Smithers, I don't believe the city made any, actual grants of funds or expended any funds because that did not go through, but just wanted to confirm that that was the case.
Mr. Becker?
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. We did not transfer any funds or do any grants for that project.
Thank you, Mr. Becker.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any further questions or comments reference to this? Very good. Hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion for approval, suspension of the rules with a favorable report.
So move.
Thank you, Ms.
Second.
Bailey.
Second.
Here a second and a motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good. Hearing none, we will report that up favorable this evening. The next item that we have is the ordinance reference 497 East Waterloo Road. This is to construct a car wash for this particular item. I know Mr. Kamer, I believe the ward council person has some comments in reference to this.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I know the hearing was held 2 weeks ago. I did miss the daytime meeting because I was on vacation, but did attend the evening meeting, and I did watch the meeting later on. I'm asking the committee for an adverse report on this. I know we had testimony from 2 residents 2 weeks ago. One was originally opposing the conditional use and then somehow switched in favor of the conditional use. I believe no matter what eventually will go on this property moving forward, one of the conditions will always be a fence that will be constructed towards the back of the property. I believe the 2 testimonies we heard 2 weeks ago basically was in favor of a fence to cut down on some foot traffic. I just want to let my colleagues know that I have spoke to 4 residents via telephone over the course of the last 2 months. We do have 3 emails that were submitted to myself that some of them I think were shared with council members during this process. And then also I did receive a phone call from one highly respected leader in our community that gave me a call on behalf of a family member that he does not want to publicly be recognized because of his job. But we all, I'm sure every single one of us has worked with this individual. So moving forward, obviously the planning commission and the planning department are against this. And I'm just asking the committee for adverse report, and hopefully eventually the property owner will find a good use and a good buyer, and the neighborhood will back this person up or whoever develops there, and we can move forward one day with something that will benefit the community. I just don't think a car wash is going to benefit the community. With that, that's all I have to say, and I'll even make the motion for adverse report when the time is right.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kamer. I'll just open up any questions or comments from anyone. Questions or comments? Not hearing any. Mr. Kamer, I ready for that adverse report?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I will make that adverse report on this ordinance.
With suspension of the rules?
With suspension of the rules, thank you.
Thank you, sir. All those in favor of an adverse report with suspension of the rules signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good. The ayes have it. We'll report that out this evening. Thank you. Next, we'll take time on 5 and 6 as those are the petitions for the 2 public hearings we just held. And then we will take time on 7 until that's addressed. Item number 8, I do believe that we do have a substitute coming in. Ms. Viviano, could you please read that in for us?
Okay. This is a substitute offered as an amendment, ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct a horticulture and volunteer center at 714 North Portage Path and declaring an emergency.
Yes, thank you for reading that in, Ms. Viviano. I would like to defer, yield to the ward council person, Mr. Malik, on this particular one. I will let the committee know and those council members that are present that there's been quite a bit of discussion, and I know Mr. Malik he's really taken a great leadership role in terms of this, and it's been quite a bit of work. I'll just be honest with you, but Mr. Malik, by all means.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so this is a conditional use that initially came in January before council. And so I just want to kind of, summarize what's happened since then in the project, just to make sure everyone is reminded of it. This is an amendment that we've made basically over the last 6 months. Councilman Fusco and myself and a number of the neighbors and folks from Steen Hewitt and other community members and the planning department have all had many conversations about finding ways that we can balance the interests of Stan Hewitt and also the interests of the neighbors. So I'm just going to share my screen. So if I can get access to do that, just so I can show the project visually. There we go. So this is the project site, right? This is Garmin Road here at the bottom. And this is really the western corner of Stan Hewitt. It's currently undeveloped. And what Stan Hewitt would like to do is take the maintenance and volunteer buildings, which are off of Portage Path right now, and move them and construct new ones in this area that's off of Garmin off of Reynolds Avenue. And so, in the past, this Reynolds Avenue access has only been the access to gas wells that are there. And so this would expand that so that volunteers would access it via that residential street. And there are a lot of benefits to moving these buildings. This area will be replaced with a lot more parking. And so that will really remedy a lot of the parking issues that residents of Mayfair and Eaton and other streets have when you have big events at Stan Hewitt. At the same time, there obviously is a concern with basically adding traffic to a residential neighborhood. Folks who live off of Trentwood and Reynolds are certainly concerned about that. There are concerns about how this access has been used in the past in ways that are not necessarily permitted under previous conditional use ordinances. And so that's what's generated a lot of the discussion. So basically, I'm going to zoom in here. This is the actual site of where the building's going to be. And this is a volunteer building and a parking lot, and then some of the storage areas and green space. And so basically what the amendment does is say that we are going to put in a traffic counter at this access here on Reynolds. It's going to be gated. There's going to be a keypad access, and there's going to be a traffic counter. And so only volunteers will access through Reynolds. All other vehicles will access using this the access from Portage Path, which is kind of a rudimentary dirt road that hasn't been finished. In a perfect world, I would like to see that road improved and finished so that all vehicles could use that road, but that's not something that is going to happen, that both financially and environmentally, I think it's not the direction Stan Hewitt wants to go in. But all the same, so the volunteers will come in through this keypad access, and the traffic counter will ensure that no more than 25 vehicles will come in or out, the 25 in, 25 out per day. And, so that will significantly cut down on, traffic concerns and limit that. The data will be shared with the planning department and myself as the ward council person monthly. And then if those access limits are violated 3 times in a year, it'll be subject to revocation of the conditional use. There also the piece of land here that is where the access is actually city-owned right-of-way. And so there's going to be a license agreement for that. We're also going to put a lot of those restrictions in that license agreement as well. So that permits another way of addressing concerns if they come up. As is kind of typical in these ordinances, the city there will also be annual renewal before planning commission. So if there are concerns, they can also be raised in that way. And then, we want to be very clear that, one of the biggest concerns that neighbors have had is that service vehicles have accessed the property through Reynolds. And so when you have big trucks, when you have construction trucks and bulldozers, it's absolutely, frankly, something that's not appropriate for this neighborhood when they can come off of Portage Path. So those are all going to come off of Portage Path, with the sole exception of vehicles needed to install the water and sewer connections, which is going to be off of Reynolds. So those vehicles will need to be there off of Reynolds. Stan Hewitt has also committed, to the extent that any of those vehicles or the water and sewer install create any issues with regard to Reynolds and creating potholes or other things, that they or their contractor will make sure to make those, pay for those repairs. Ultimately, this is not a perfect solution. The other part is that this figure here shows parking, additional parking near the storage areas. That parking is not going to be striped, and no vehicles for volunteers are going to be used for that parking. So it really is just going to be limited to this small amount of parking down here for those 25 folks per day. Most days it will not be 25, but that is that issue. So basically, I've gone on at length, but I just, I feel like it's important to make sure everyone's aware of the issues. It's not a perfect solution. There still are longer term issues, right? If the interests or needs of Stan Hewitt change over time, there's the possibility that this access could be expanded and it could create more of a burden on the residents. And that's something I have a significant concern about. I think we've done a lot to address that in the short term, but I would, encourage us all that we be mindful of that issue going forward. I appreciate all the residents who have raised concerns. I really have a lot of thanks to give to Chairman Fusco, who has been incredibly patient and incredibly giving of his time to talk through a lot of these issues. And this traffic counter idea, in all honesty, was his idea. So also want to thank Stan Hewitt for recognizing that there were concerns and sitting and talking with us as well. So with that, I'd ask if we could pass this next week, just so folks have an opportunity to raise any questions or concerns or comments, but have also shared a reading on the summary from an email I sent to the neighbors. The neighbors are all well aware of this. Some of them still have concerns, and that is absolutely fair. But that's my spiel. So happy to hear any comments or questions or anything that others have.
Thank you, Mr. Malik. I can tell you this, I respect, excuse me, the concerns of the neighborhood, as well as the issues that have come forward. And congratulations to Mr. Malik in terms of it's been a long run because there's a lot of issues to discuss. And this is precedent setting in terms of, some of the things that we're asking for. So but then again, I also have to realize, and we certainly all appreciate what Stan Hewitt does for Akron and Northeast Ohio as well. So this has been kind of tough, but planning has helped quite a bit. Our friends in the law department has helped quite a bit. And Mr. Malik has done a great job leading the way. Is there any questions or comments? That's kind of well, not really a motion, but I can certainly make a motion that we refer this item. So we do grant that week's time Mr. Malik had requested. But if there's any questions or comments from anyone, happy to entertain them before I make that motion. Questions or comments? Okie doke. Okay, hearing none. I'll make a motion that we refer this item for 1 week. Oh, Mr. Neal, I see your hands up.
Yes, sir. Thanks for the presentation, Mr. Councilman. Man, it's been a while since we've talked about this. The one thing I heard was, of course, the keeping the integrity of the neighborhood. When I looked at the diagram, it looked like there was an access road that came off of Portage Path. Could
Yes.
that access road just be used and they not come off the back, or is that not big enough? Or I know it makes the trip a little bit further, but
That's a good question, Mr. Neal. Mr. Malik, you want to take that?
Yes, sure. So yes, Mr. Neal, that certainly was something that was raised at Planning Commission, was either making it a one-way in from Reynolds and out on Portage Path, or entirely using Portage Path. And so there is that access road. Councilman Fusco and I walked it back in January when I think it was definitely muddy. I don't know if there was snow. But it is really an unimproved road, and it is pretty hilly. It would be probably cost of around $200,000 to $300,000 to fully improve it, so that you could either make it one-way or two-way access. That just being entirely candid, was my preference in discussing with Stan Hewitt. I think that is not the direction that they want to go in. I understand that they put together this entire proposal and also got significant funding in the state budget. Over time, I really would like to see them improve that road. And, if they're going to rely on it for service vehicles, I think that, they also should work on, making it safe for volunteers. And I understand that the volunteer profile are folks who are, relatively older, and, they want to make sure that if an accident did happen, there are some steep drop-offs that they would be able to, monitor it and that kind of thing. But yeah, that is a topic that has come up and has been the subject of a lot of discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Neal. Thank you, Mr. Malik. Further questions or comments? Okay, holding any, I'll make a recommendation that we refer this item for 1 week's time. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of referring this item number 9, I think. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay, very good. The ayes have it. We'll take time on the rest of the agenda, and then we'll move into the new list of legislation. Let's see here. Okay, the first item, number 4, we had just spoke on and just voted to refer, so that one is taken care of. Excuse me. Excuse me. The next item is ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract or agreement with Akron Brewing LLC Limited Liability Corporation, modifying the terms of a lease agreement related to 58 East Market Street. Mr. Beckert, I believe, is here for this one.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. As you know, Akron Brewing is leasing part of the High Market parking deck right now. They lease about 3,500 square feet of commercial space in that parking deck. Due to COVID, the last 15 months, they've really endured some financial hardship on the business due to the effect of COVID. And what we're asking to do in this amendment to their lease agreement is to waive the final 2 years of their lease payment to the city, which would equate to about $25,000 a year. And this would be able to help them to get back on their feet a little bit, hopefully create and at least retain the people that they have on staff right now, and promote economic development in that part of town. As you know, right now, we're still under construction right now, as well as coming out of COVID, and all the small businesses are struggling. So we're trying to help in the best way that we can. Their lease is up at the end of 2022. So we do anticipate that they will sign another 5-year lease. And by then, we are hoping and praying that they're going to be back on their feet enough that, we won't have to come back again.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Beckert. Questions or comments? Any questions or comments relative to this? Okay, Mr. Malik?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Beckert. We certainly, think this is sensible legislation because Akron really has really activated a space that was not, activated. It was just a parking deck, and really, I think has been one of the bright spots of the downtown development in the last few years. And I say that as someone who doesn't drink. But the one thing I guess I would ask is, has there been kind of discussion of what that financial need is, and kind of quantifying, Akron's losses, and that this really is absolutely necessary in order to help them out in the present time?
Yes, they did provide us with some information on their losses and what they weren't able to sell, especially in the sales realm, mostly in retail and people coming in the last 2 years. And it was significant, way more than what their lease payment was, as well as their initial investment was over $750,000 in that space, and I'm sure they're still paying on that too.
Sure.
So just to clarify, it was well over and above that lease payment.
Thank you, sir. I think that, it definitely seems warranted. I guess the only other question I would have would be, like, given that the Main Street project is still ongoing, I guess what's the timeline there in terms of, I know there's some impact there on Market Street. What's the timeline that we expect in terms of getting things back to a little bit more normal so that, the impact on the business can be abated?
From what I understand for the Main Street, at least the intersection is the main part right now. I believe that they'll be done with the intersection by the end of the year. So then at least, they're going to switch sides of the intersection, I'm hoping by the end of July. So that'll at least help Akron's side out a little more. And they're going to try to ignite that old Commerce Park space too, with hopefully a little bit of a sit-down area and a beer garden type thing to also help them with their sales.
Okay. And with that beer garden and the Commerce Building site, that section that's from Mill Street to Main, or from Mill Street to Market, when is that going to be finalized?
You probably have to ask Public Service for a true date on that.
Okay.
I don't speak for them. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Malik. Brad, I got, excuse me, a couple quick questions here. That deck was originally built with retail, commercial in mind for that space. In my question, and I know it had been vacant for kind of a super long time. So I'm asking you to go back and try to remember, when was it built and when did Akron move in? Because I want to say it was well over 10 years. Is that accurate?
Yes, it was built like 2007, 2008. Akron's lease started in 2017, so you're correct. It was 10 years, and there was really nothing finished in it, so they had to take it from the ground up and do the improvements.
That's quite a vacancy for us to absorb, the city, if you will, because we developed it with that in mind, and it was visionary at the time. But like I said, we held it for over 10 years, and so we do appreciate what Akron does for that particular corner there. So appreciate that. Is there a motion here for it's the consent agenda? Okay, Mr. Becker?
Yes, please.
Very good. Thank you. Is there a motion for consent agenda on this?
Motion for consent.
Is there a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good. The ayes have it. On that particular item. Item number 6 is approving the sale of city-owned property to Zachary J. Aiken, determining the property is not needed for a public use. Is there somebody here on this particular item?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Mr. Wheat.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. I'm Frederick Wheat with OIED. Zachary Aiken wants to purchase 317 Hickory Street for residential purposes, for residential development. The property is not needed for public use.
Okay. Is this particular property, what the sale price is commensurate with what we ask for?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Is there a rush on this? Consent agenda okay, or a time frame that's needed on this particular one?
Consent agenda is fine.
Okay. Is there any questions from anyone? Mr. Malik?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Reed, just one question. In the agreement, in the sale agreement, is there going to be a time period by which the property needs to be developed?
After the closing date, he has 30 days to begin building, and he has 1 year from the closing date to finish the build.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
Very good. Further questions or comments from anyone? Any questions or comments? Okay, very good. Is there a motion for consent agenda?
Motion for consent.
Thank you, Ms. Baylor. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. All those in favor of the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Hearing none against, we'll report that as a consent agenda item this evening. With that, the planning committee is adjourned. Thank you all. Thank you. Turn it over to Ms. Viviano.
Our next committee meeting for the day will be the Rules Committee, and that will begin at 3 o'clock today. Those committee members are Freeman, Fusco, Amobian, Connor, and Malik. Again, that will begin at 3 o'clock today. Thank you.